Slowly creeping up on the Carolinas.
Thousands are without power up in North Carolina right now. Hundreds of others are stranded, and South Carolina could be hit with similar conditions later on tonight.
Well, our first warning weather team getting us ready for the storm. Meteorologist Emily Gracie standing by with an update on Florence. Just came out a few minutes ago. What did it have to say, Ann?
All right, no major changes except for this thing is finally moving onshore. Still a Category 1 hurricane. The winds right now with Florence are 90 miles per hour within that center of circulation, and that center of circulation is about to move onshore. But this thing is still moving so slow, in fact, barely moving at all. West-northwest movement at 6 miles per hour. It's 25 miles from Wilmington at this time, but bear in mind, Wilmington, not exactly the outer point there, those beaches. So take a look at this thing on the radar and how much rain is falling, and this is why we're seeing those reports out of North Carolina right now. A lot of that rain on the north side really slamming the southern portion of the Outer Banks right now and finally approaching the coastline, but it has slowed way down, and it's that forward motion being so slow which is causing the issue here as far as flooding. Think about it, you're dealing with surge and fresh rain, so those are two things together, and several high tides in a period here where a typical hurricane would move onshore during a couple of high tides at the most. To take a look at that center of circulation, some almost clear skies looking right through that eye right there, but North Topsail Beach getting slammed right now with that eye wall, and it does extend down towards Wilmington as well, but this is such a slow mover. This is going to be going on through the morning hours here where we're dealing with this landfalling hurricane. Still 170 miles as the crow flies from Charleston right now, and that's why we're not really experiencing much in the way of impacts, breezy conditions out there right now, but for us, we have not seen the rain, and we probably won't for a while longer. In fact, those clouds not really covering the area for the most part here in Charleston as of right now. But we are under that tropical storm warning, so tropical storm conditions are possible here in Charleston. In fact, they're likely at this point within the next 24 hours. Areas to our north, even inland areas under that tropical storm warning as well. Even areas as far inland as Columbia under a tropical storm watch. So it could still be a tropical storm as it is expected to move across the state of South Carolina. It's going to impact a huge area, and you can see that by looking at our flash flood watch. That green, it covers a huge chunk of both North and South Carolina, so there's huge concern here about the slow movement of this and how much rain could fall over the next 3 days. Hurricane watch still in effect for portions of the area and hurricane warning to our north. Here's the latest track on Florence, a Category 1 hurricane making landfall right now in North Carolina. It is expected to turn slightly to the southwest over the next 24 hours, and this is today at 2 p.m. Moving inland as a Category 1 hurricane still, but it should start to weaken even more as it moves over land. Now, it is expected to move into South Carolina sometime later tonight or early tomorrow morning, and by tomorrow afternoon expected to be a tropical storm moving through the northern portion of our state. Now, notice we are still on the south side of this track. That is key. That is good news. That is going to keep the worst of the impacts away from Charleston. However, impacts will still be felt, and our neighbors to the north are going to be dealing with some really rough impacts, especially that rain. Now, I do have concerns about people who did evacuate inland to places like Columbia or even farther north, places like Charlotte, because they are going to get a lot of rain. But that long-term track does speed it up a little bit, moving through the upstate, potentially the mountains of North Carolina, not a place you want heavy rain either, and then does move it north as a tropical depression by early next week. So we are looking at some major impacts through the Carolinas, and here in Charleston, I really do think that things have settled down as far as our impacts. We are not impact free. In fact, we flood on a clear day here in Charleston, so we are going to keep a close eye on these tides. High tide today coming at 12:28 this afternoon, and then overnight tonight we'll be watching that high tide as well. So when the heavy rain does arrive, if it coincides with that high tide, we could be looking at some flooding here in Charleston as well. So we'll keep a close eye on that, but I'll be tracking those latest computer models and let you know what other impacts we'll be dealing with. That's coming up in a few minutes.
Well, we do have reporters scattered across the low country this morning, bringing you the latest on Florence. Our Ann Emerson tracking shelters in Berkeley County. We're
going to start with our own Brody Hart. He's live downtown Charleston, and Brody, we're seeing it. It looks empty down at the market.
Yeah, John, it does look empty, and that's likely going to be the case throughout the weekend. We also hope here at the market, though, it kind of stays like it looks right now, and that is to say not underwater as we swing this way. Not only the market itself right here, but this way over here. It's the intersection of East Bay Street and Meeting Street as well, and Market Street, I should say, that is also so frequently such an issue for flooding in this area. Now, we're not just talking about flooding, though. It's the wind here, as you can see, whipping through these trees right now. Nothing crazy right just yet, but definitely something to keep an eye on. That's going to kind of be our visual aid throughout the day if we see any wind picking up throughout this Friday. Now, I want to show you video from previous times, though, the market is flooded. Here's the thing. It so often does not take a whole lot of rain to flood this area. And when we're talking about the rainfall potential of the storm throughout the weekend, we could be looking at some issues here downtown, especially if it's paired with a high tide. Now, we're expecting high tide today at about 12:30 p.m. We may not have much rain at that time, as Emily Gracie just told us, but we're going to have another high tide around midnight, and then even a higher likelihood possibly of rain at that time. Then again tomorrow around noon, that's another high tide that we're talking about. So as this storm continues to kind of jog our way from North Carolina, we'll be keeping an eye on that rainfall if that does tend to pick up. But really today, likely more of a wind event. We'll be tracking that for you here downtown, and that's where we're live this morning. Tessa and John, I'll send it back to you.
Right, Brody, thank you. Now to a live look at the Ravenel. Been across it a couple of times this morning, and it looked just like that still. You won't see many cars riding over it today. A lot of viewers asked us if officials would close area bridges. Officials say they don't plan on it, but they are urging drivers to exercise caution. Wind speeds could make driving across them dangerous.
5:05 on this Friday. Cots now being delivered to shelters across the Low Country. Citadel cadets set up cots and blankets at Cane Bay High School in Berkeley County. Officials tell us 130 people are staying at that shelter along with 53 pets. Right now we're going to bring in our own Ann Emerson. She's tracking conditions in Berkeley County for us during the storm. Ann, good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning. You know, it still feels like the quiet before the storm, and it's breezy out here, but it's not overwhelming at all. So we've had an opportunity to talk to some of the folks out here. You know, there was wonderful news that came through last night that we were reporting on. We had the National Guard were delivering cots to the South Carolina Red Cross shelters all across the state, which was fantastic. We had been following that story all day yesterday, and those cots actually they came out of the Red Cross in North Charleston and started going into the shelters. And this is one of the spots where they've got a whole room full of cots, and folks are sleeping soundly right now, which is just fantastic considering the amount of anxiety and stress of getting out of their homes and evacuating. Now, we had an opportunity to speak to Mr. Sprinkle here. I wanted to introduce you. Mr. Sprinkle, you evacuated for this storm. Tell me how things are going inside.
Pretty well. Everybody does what they're supposed to do.
As far as the cots coming in last night, what did you?
It's really neat, you know. All them soldiers working really hard, you know. And all the people were so happy to see the cots, you know, and they just did a fantastic job all around in there. The Red Cross was really great.
Well, thank you very much. You know, I think Mr. Sprinkle is it's indicative when you see how soundly everyone's sleeping in there now. They seem to all be very comfortable inside the shelter. We've just been able to sort of look through the window and see what's going on, and it looks very quiet. It's been quiet overnight, and it looks like things are going quite well here. So we're at Goose Creek High School. This is one of the full capacity shelters for Red Cross right now for South Carolina. As we wait for this storm to come inland, come to us, we at least know that these folks are doing very well inside this shelter. In Goose Creek, I'm Ann Emerson. Back to you in the studio.
All right, Ann, thank you. And take a look at this. Rushing waters took over Topsail Beach in North Carolina today. The video was posted overnight. Yesterday, you can see people trying to avoid the rising stream. Some didn't have much luck.
And a sight that you see all the time during hurricane coverage, storm chaser Bart Comstock planted his feet on Topsail Island in North Carolina Thursday. You can see he's trying hard to stay upright in all that wind there, only getting worse.
We're showing wind gusts right now in Wilmington, which is a little bit away from the coastline, at 62 miles per hour. Myrtle Beach checking in with 41 mile per hour wind gusts, and here in Charleston, 26. I'll let you know when the conditions really start to deteriorate for parts of North or South Carolina. That's coming up after the break.
WCIV-TV4, sponsored by George St. Country Lawyers, always looking out for you.
A live look over the Holy City. All is quiet here this morning. We are seeing some windy conditions in some spots, a little bit breezy out there, but nothing too intense picking up yet, and it is not raining. Right now, 78 degrees from the airport. We are cloudy, though, and we're going to stay cloudy through most of the day today. And then we're going to start to see some conditions go downhill as we go through later today and tomorrow as well. But our conditions are not going to be, I don't think, as bad as expected. So we are looking at a tropical storm force winds possible here in Charleston. But many areas are going to just have a really windy couple of days. So right now our winds are at 17 miles per hour. Those are sustained winds. And when we talk about tropical storm force winds, that means sustained over 39 miles per hour and as high as 74 miles per hour. So that's a pretty huge spread there. And they're already experiencing those winds in areas a little bit farther to the north. So Myrtle Beach right now sustained at 28. Sustained winds in Wilmington, where it is about to make landfall, 44 miles per hour right now. So as that storm moves on shore, we are looking at winds as a threat, but still the biggest threat does remain to be rain. And it's that slow forward motion of Florence as it's moving on shore. It's moving so slowly, about 5 or 6 miles per hour. And you think about you could run that fast, particularly moving onshore with all of that moisture that did pick up from the ocean. So North Topsail Beach right now getting slammed with that eye wall, just moving onshore right now along those beaches. So those winds are going to be the most intense right there along the beaches from North Topsail Beach down towards Wilmington. They're just starting to get the outer eye wall there as well. But like I said, moving so slowly that push of moisture, all that rain that is just being dumped on places like Morehead City is causing some devastating impacts up there. Now, as we zoom out, I do want to show you how tight the gradient here is on those winds and the rain, because if you go just a little bit farther south, Myrtle Beach, it's barely raining at all right now. So northern portions of South Carolina starting to feel impacts in the way of wind, but the rain not really quite making it down. And there are areas in Charleston that may stay dry for most of the day today. So take a look at our futurecast, and I do want to point out that we're missing some model data. So you're going to see some times where it completely goes blank, but I'm still going to show it to you because it's important information to see. So this is where we lose the data, but going into tomorrow, this is 3 a.m. You can see that center kind of falling apart, but moving across the center of the state. So places like Columbia are going to get the strongest winds, I think, as it does move through those areas. A lot of rain as well, and areas north of there are going to get a lot of rain because it's pulling in all that moisture and off the ocean. So this is tomorrow at 3 a.m. Notice just starting to get that rain into Charleston at that point. So we could possibly go all day today without any rain. And then it's expected to just move due west through the state. And this could cause some issues as far as the upstate and western North Carolina. These are places where there's a lot of elevation change and mudslides are a problem. So that's an issue, especially if it moves very slowly. Notice this is Sunday at 4 a.m. So it's taken a while to move across the Carolinas. Now into early next week, it will start to move north, but not before causing some flooding for some people in the Carolinas. And where the spots are still yet to be determined. I want to zoom in and show you futurecast here at home, and bear in mind, once again, we are missing a little bit of data, so I've moved it forward. This is starting tomorrow at 2 a.m. just starting to get the rain into the area. The winds are still an issue at that point. 5 a.m. tomorrow morning, still getting rain, heavy in some spots like McClellanville, getting some heavy rounds of rain. But notice areas south of Charleston, places like Edisto, may not be getting any rain at all. Now by later tomorrow, I think we'll all get some rain. This is 3 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, but the heaviest is still well to the north, so pretty tight gradient between those who get heavy rain and those that may get a few showers. There could be spots in South Carolina that do not get rain at all. So this thing is going to certainly cause some issues, but not for everyone. By Sunday morning, 3 a.m., we're starting to see some improvement out there. Now, if it moves a little bit slower or a little bit farther south, then we're looking at a very rainy and windy day on Sunday as well. But I think things will start to settle down by then. So let's go through the timeline here, and this is for Charleston of what you can expect as far as Florence. So starting today, the winds are going to get picked up a little bit, and we are going to start to see that chance of tropical storm force wind gusts later today. But in general, winds will be out of the northwest at about 20 to 25. Rain probably not moving in until later today, so mainly just the breezy conditions during the day today. And then tonight we'll drop down into the mid 70s, and it will be windy. So the winds could gust up over 40 miles per hour at that point, and we could get some rain starting tonight and going into tomorrow. Tomorrow, I think the worst conditions. So we're going to expect windy conditions throughout the day tomorrow, and those winds could gust much higher than that. And the Weather Service is saying we still can't rule out hurricane hurricane force wind gusts, but I think here in Charleston, we probably aren't looking at winds that strong with the track that it's on right now. So tomorrow, really the worst conditions with the heaviest rain possible and the wind gusts at the highest. And then by Sunday, we're going to start to see some improvements. Still breezy, but the winds are going to come down significantly on Sunday. However, the rain could still be sticking around. So if it's a slow mover, we're talking about heavy rain that could last into Sunday. If it moves a little bit quicker, that heavy rain should be out of Charleston by Sunday, but impacting folks in the upstate. So unfortunately for folks perhaps heading home from their evacuation orders, there could be some real heavy rain out there still at that point. So things are going to start to improve next week. We'll start to see the sun back out, warming temperatures, and our rain chance going back to normal for this time of year, about 30% by Wednesday and Thursday.
All right, thanks. And streets, of course, turned into rivers. That's the reality for folks up in North Carolina right now. Homes have already taken on water, hundreds of thousands without power at this hour, and more outages expected through the Carolinas through the weekend.
And now let's send things out to Megan Rivers, who's tracking conditions out in McClellanville. Good morning, Megan. How are things out there?
Well, good morning, Tessa and John. We're in McClellanville at the landing where conditions are kind of eerily calm right now. It's like the calm before the storm. Right now, we are seeing a very, very light drizzle here, so a few water drops coming from the sky right now, but it's really windy. It's the coolest morning that we've had in a while out here. Very windy. Had to put a jacket on just because of the breeze, but not a lot going on right now. The water seems to be relatively calm. And the biggest thing that we're seeing right now is just a lot of wind. We're expecting to see the wind gusts increase as the morning goes on. But like I said, for the most part right now, things are pretty calm. We spoke with a few people who live out in the South Santee area yesterday who didn't evacuate, who said they've ridden out every storm that's come this way dating back to Hugo, and that they haven't had a lot of damage from this area, but that they do get a lot of flooding, with a heavy rainstorm. They got a lot of flooding with Irma last year and Matthew the year before. But again, right now things are pretty calm, just a few drizzles coming from the sky and just a lot of wind. I'll send things back to you guys in the studio.
All right, Megan, thank you. Of course, quiet and all calm here at home, but not the case in other places. New videos showing the rough waves in Norfolk, Virginia. That's how big this thing, and that beach practically gone as water moves in. We're moving out for a quick commercial break, but we'll be back after this.
Florence making landfall right now in North Carolina. Impacts will start to be felt here in the low country today in the way of gusty winds. In fact, tropical storm force winds are possible for an extended period of time here in Charleston. Rough surf and beach erosion already happening out there, and rain is going to fall. Much more rain to the north areas like Myrtle Beach. However, areas around Charleston could get a few inches, and it could cause some flooding, especially if it happens during high tide. Still looking at a chance of storm surge, although less concerned with that. However, the slow moving system is something we may be dealing with through the weekend.
All right, and while we wait out Hurricane Florence, one South Santee family is using time to enjoy each other and spend a few moments on the front porch.
Here's Megan Rivers with this heartwarming story.
Believe it or not, I got up this morning, I cut the yard. My wife said, "You must be crazy." I said, "Well, the storm is coming."
For a half a century.
50 years. 52. Well, 52. Good from 1966 to now, so is 52.
David and Jeanette Smith have been riding out the storms of life.
We got married when we were just turned 19, and we're 71 now. Well, hey, that's a many years, ain't it?
David on his steps and Jeanette in her rocking chair. They talk about the storms they've seen.
I said, if I know Hugo was going to be as bad as it was, I would have never, ever stayed home. I think I would have left. It was just that bad. But you know, once you here, you can't leave. Once it comes, it's too late.
A fallen tree once caused the Smiths some damage.
My garage was in the back, and a pine tree hit it and shifted off the block and leveled it. Now, I lost my whole garage, so that's a brand new garage back there.
This is the fourth year in a row some kind of storm has threatened the low country.
We got a lot of rain, wind, but that was it. I told Jeanette, I said, if we could stay here through Hugo, well, we're going to ride Florence out and see what it does.
The two have survived every storm of life together.
Say a little bit of curse words and go about your business.
You say a little curse words and go about your business? And once Florence comes and goes, David and Jeanette plan to spend a few more days on the porch.
But I think tomorrow we're going to tell the story.
In South Santee, Megan Rivers, ABC News 4.
That's what we're all doing, just waiting this storm and making sure that everything's going to be okay with our loved ones. We'll be right back with much more coverage, another check of the forecast. That's next. Stay with us.
Hi, it's Ann Emerson. I'm here at Goose Creek High School where
Hey, good morning, everyone. Emily, Gracie, and I still teaming up with this storm, and we are starting to see it make landfall near Wilmington. And for us, we're still not quite seeing a whole lot from this just yet. 78 degrees and it is overcast. We're seeing those breezes pick up just a bit, but I mean, I drove over the Ravenel this morning and I didn't really notice it on my car. So right now, here are those winds. Wilmington 45, Myrtle Beach 28. However, we've seen other readings putting Wilmington upwards of 60, so it is gusty, it is increasing. And as soon as that eye does move over Wilmington, you're going to see that number spike significantly. That's the thing with hurricanes. That actual hurricane force winds, it's in that tight area right around the wall, and then it falls, reduces quickly as soon as it gets away from that storm. Myrtle Beach, though, you see is picking up those winds as well, and those are current winds. Those aren't gusts. All those places have seen gusts significantly higher. So there's the latest with satellite radar, and as we've talked about, it is starting to make landfall. You see the eye is literally just, I mean, in this case, very short distance from the beaches. So we're seeing that happen right now between Wilmington and North Topsoil Beach. For us, we're still a decent distance away, 170 miles directly from the eye of the storm. And we haven't seen any of those outer bands yet. We've seen those clouds, but no rain showers to speak of just yet. Even Myrtle Beach just getting light rain right now. Of course, they are going to see that pick up significantly within the next little bit. And that's because the storm is moving slowly. So that's going to be the thing for us. We're going to start to see those winds pick up today. Evening rain is possible. Overall, though, I think mostly the clouds. You might see the sun peek out a time or two, but overall, it's going to be a cloudy gray day. Tonight, windy, some rain with those showers starting to pick up. Notice those winds about 20-25 miles an hour, gusts near 40. For tomorrow, Saturday, heavy rain is possible. Those winds, 20-25 miles an hour, gusts near 35, with some areas further north seeing slightly higher gusts. And then, especially come Sunday, the winds will taper off, but we still have that chance of heavy rain. And the wild card there is how quickly this is going to move out. There is variability in those models. Some take their sweet time, and we're going to see more rain on Sunday. Others, maybe not as much. We'll talk about those and show you some of those models coming up in your full weather forecast.
All right, Chris, thank you. And Georgetown, of course, they will get hit hard over the next day or so. Darren Stoltzfus taking a break from sports, joining us now, giving us a closer look to our neighbors in the north. Darren, what are you seeing out there?
Hey there, John. Good morning to you. We're not seeing much out here in Georgetown, honestly. We've seen a few police officers out patrolling the streets here on Front Street. We've seen a few of the reporters out doing their jobs. And as we see right now, we see a little rain for kind of the first time in the past few hours. But we've been out and about. We spoke with a boat captain yesterday. He was very concerned about the tides tonight at about 11 p.m. into about 1 a.m., and seems like everything is fine, which is good news. We made our way up towards Pawleys Island, and that as well. The National Guard was blocking us from getting on the island, but they said, too, it's kind of been so far so good. No news is good news. But if you take a look, you can't see much. It's still dark outside. You're used to this, John. I'm not used to being awake at this hour. But the water seems to be at normal hour. We're not seeing much movement from the water. We're not seeing. We are getting some wind gusts coming through for the first time, and we're getting a little bit of rain here. So it's a developing situation. Hopefully we will not see much here in Georgetown, but as for now, we are, for the most part, staying dry and staying calm, which is a good thing. We've got live coverage continuing throughout the morning here from Georgetown, and if things do change, we will update you. But for now, live in Georgetown, Darren Stoltzfus, let's send it back to you.
There are a few curfews in place you should know about. Folly Beach Mayor Tim Goodwin set a curfew from 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. People entering the island will need to show 2 forms of ID. Horry County also has a curfew in place from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. No word on when the curfews will be lifted.
Berkeley County has additional shelters available. Macedonia Middle School, Cross High School now open to evacuees. Other locations include Berkeley Middle School, Cane Bay High School, which is pet friendly, Goose Creek High School, as well as St. Stephen Elementary. Our own Ann Emerson is live in Berkeley County for us this morning, monitoring the storm. And good morning to you.
Good morning to you. You know, the wind is really starting to pick up out here. We're at Goose Creek High School. Now, this is one of the shelters from the Red Cross that were packed, just full capacity. And last night, the National Guard started bringing in cots. There were not cots before, from what we understand, but there are cots now. And we have one of the evacuees with us. Her name is Gloria. Gloria, I want to just say thank you so much for talking to us. I know it's early in the morning, but it sounds like you got a good night's sleep last night.
Absolutely, finally. The night before, there was no sleep at all because a lot of people were on the floor. And 350 people, it's kind of hard. But everybody has been very kind. The Red Cross, the National Guard, the police officers, you name it, we have it. And we have a lot of food. We have cots. And everybody has a cell phone. Everybody in there has a cell phone.
Tell me, Gloria, before when you first got here, there were no cots, is that right?
There were none for the first 2 days. But then National Guard and the Army brought in everything. And the Red Cross, they've been here 24 hours a day. Police officers, 24 hours a day. So you feel totally safe. It's a new experience for me, but it's a good one because you make friends, you laugh, and you're silly. And it's a good feeling because in a disaster like this, there's not a lot to look forward to. And then you meet people that are very kind and loving, and the Red Cross, oh, what can I get for you?
And as far as where you were coming out of Charleston, you evacuated on Tuesday because it was a mandatory evacuation,
yes,
is that right?
And we're right on the water, right downtown Charleston. And after Hugo in 1989, you can't stay there. So I heard that 3 million people were being evacuated from South Carolina. So it's a big undertaking, but I have not heard one person complain. I've not heard the people who are helping us complain. It's just lovely.
Gloria, thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Welcome.
It's nice to meet you. And
have a good day.
You know, and it's so great to hear. You know, Gloria told me when I first met her just a little while ago, she told me, you know, she went to sleep soundly last night and she didn't wake up just until now. And that's exactly what these folks need. It's at full capacity here. The evacuees need sleep and they're getting it. And so that's just great news. So we'll be keeping an eye on this storm. It's certainly the wind's picking up, and we're starting to feel the effects of this storm right now. So we'll be staying with you all day long. Ann Emerson in Goose Creek. Back to you in the studio.
All right, Ann, thank you. So good to see, hear some of the people's experiences there and the good that can come out of what could be a disaster. Well, doctors say communication is key when it comes to checking on your relatives during a storm. Many senior citizens don't want to leave their homes during a storm. Most say they've gone through much worse. Doctors say you need to give them extra motivation to get them out the door. One easy way, tell them the family is getting together for a little reunion.
Seniors need to be treated with dignity and respect in all sense and all aspects, because it is a fearful time for all of us. It's even more sensitive for them because they may not know exactly what's happening and what's going to be the long term.
Yeah, if you're still having trouble getting your relatives to leave, contact their doctor or even a pharmacist. They might be able to convince them to pack up and go.
All right, 5:38 right now. Downtown Charleston, normally pretty busy on a Friday. Not the case, though, this week. Many businesses and homes boarding up ahead of Florence. Brody Hart joins us live from the market downtown. Brody, we don't even need a hurricane for that area to flood usually.
Yeah, John, that's right. Even a typical summer rain can flood this area, and this intersection of East Bay and Market Street is especially notorious. But also talking today about the wind. We've got the tree behind me to the left of the U.S. Custom House. That's going to kind of be one of our measures. Another, though, is these palmetto trees that are over here. We're going to kind of see the wind likely picking up this morning, but also want to talk about those sandbags that are right there in front of that restaurant. As bad as flooding often is in this area, they don't want to take any chances with that, and it's scenes just like this that are the reason why. This is video of times that the market has flooded in previous storms. And guys, here's really what the worst case scenario for this area could be. It's to have this storm hitting us hard during a high tide, when it's just sitting over us and dumping rain on us for several hours. Now, this won't really be as much of a problem today, very likely, but tonight's high tide around midnight, tomorrow's high tide around noon could be a different story. But very likely, don't expect to really see anybody here at the market today. A lot of times we see kayakers in this area coming through when we have a lot of flooding. Hopefully, though, we're not going to see any of that just because there's not going to be any vendors here, and it is potential for some serious flooding right here in this area because it is so prone to flooding, like we said, hurricane or not. But we're live downtown this morning. Tessa and John, that's the latest. I'll get it back to you.
All right, and here's a look right now at our wind speeds. You see Georgetown and Charleston both in the teens. Yep. So is Beaufort. A lot of that is just typical breezes, except Georgetown starting to pick up. We'll have a look at our forecast and the latest models coming up in just a bit. All right, here is a live look right now from Wilmington, North Carolina. A lot stormier there, a lot of rain, a lot of wind, and they have had gusts approaching hurricane force winds. Steady winds not quite there yet, but the eye is coming ashore, so that will obviously change very soon. We're going to see those winds in Wilmington pick up significantly, frankly, within probably the next hour or so. And you just got to look at it too, looking at our infrared map here. Moving close, so the eye wall is getting really close to Wilmington, and that's where those strongest winds are. So they are going to see that pick up here very, very soon. Right now, the storm, it is Category 1, but that's the top edge of a Cat 1. 90 miles an hour, winds west-northwest at 6. And even though it is down to a Cat 1, when you've seen that footage, the storm surge, especially that built up when the storm was a lot stronger, there's always a bit of a delay before that storm surge dies down. So the Outer Banks and parts of the coast still got hammered from this storm. And it's still going strong. And of course, always the worry is the rain and the amount of rain. In Charleston, well, it's not that bad right now. 78 degrees, overcast skies. Looking at the tropical tracker, very few changes over the past 24, 36 hours. So that's good news as far as everyone kind of knows what to expect. Bad news is, obviously, ideally, it would just decide to faint and go away to the Atlantic. We're not going to be seeing that. So sliding through South Carolina near Myrtle Beach, sliding up around Columbia, and then eventually moving into the Appalachians. Asheville actually looks like they're going to get quite a bit of rain from this. So does Charlotte, as they'll both be near the center or the north side of that storm if it follows the center part of this track. Even if it goes far enough south, though, they'll still get quite a bit of rain. For us, we're on that far southern edge, but then again, notice too that it still continues to go. These are the recent spaghetti plots, and all of them do, generally speaking, take it to the north of us. So we're feeling pretty confident that that's going to be the case. Now, what we are going to see, though, is a big difference in who gets how strong of winds. So folks in the southern part of our viewing area, like down towards Edisto, and especially as you get into Colleton County, winds won't be nearly as strong as if you go farther north. So here's the hurricane force winds. We're not really expected to get anything like that. You go further north up towards Myrtle, they're expecting that, especially Wilmington, obviously. Tropical storm force winds, this is a much bigger field, and this is what we could see in Charleston. Notice we are in that 80, 90% category, and then you head up towards McClellanville, they're in the 100% line for tropical storm force winds. You get down towards Beaufort, it's only about 50%. So there will be big variability in the strength of the winds, as well as the strength, or excuse me, how much rain everyone's going to get. With the farther south you go, the less the impacts are going to be. Right now, winds are 15 Georgetown, 17 in Charleston, and we're going to go through Futurecast. Now, as Emily mentioned earlier, there is a bit of a data glitch, so we'll have a moment where we're not going to see anything, but then it pops back on right around midnight for Saturday. So here's Saturday, just after midnight, Charleston getting some fairly heavy rain through tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon. But then notice as the storm falls apart, those rain bands start to break apart. And because we're on the south side of the storm, the brunt of it is going to stay away from us. We could still see some changes from this run. And so those rainfall totals aren't cemented. But here's the latest GFS, and notice we're pretty far down. We're not going to see very much. But even up towards McClellanville and Georgetown, they're going to see significantly more. So there will be a big variability in the amount of rain that you get, once again, from that north to south side. The Euro does bring the rain just a little bit further south. So if this were to be the case, Charleston would get more 3, 4, maybe 5 inches or so. And then up towards McClellanville, Georgetown, they'll be looking at 6+. Even then, still Beaufort, barely an inch or so. So here's what we're going to be looking at. So rain 2 to 6 inches. Again, that big spread for those that watch this station. Much more as you head north. Tropical storm force winds, we're pretty comfortable in saying we're going to be seeing those, especially with some of those gusts. Rough surf at in some beach erosion, yeah, we're going to be seeing some of that too. Storm surge, it is possible. The bigger concern will be that heavy rain coinciding with high tide. Storm surge, again, from where we are with the storm, we're not overly worried about that. So here's your extended forecast for you. Again, Saturday, Sunday do look breezy and rainy with gusty winds, particularly on Saturday. And then hopefully, if this storm continues to move at its current pace, things will start to clear out and improve by Monday.
I want to check in with our own Megan Rivers right now. She's tracking conditions up in McClellanville. You said you got some drizzle up there earlier. How's it looking right now, Megan?
Well, yeah, John, the drizzle has kind of worn off some, but the wind hasn't. It's actually gotten a little bit more windy since we spoke with you guys earlier. It's hard to see out here. It's very, very dark at the landing here in McClellanville, but off in the distance you can hear the trees and see a little wind movement and action along those trees there. I had a chance yesterday to speak with one South Santee family in McClellanville, and they say that they plan to ride out whatever Hurricane Florence brings our way.
We got a lot of rain, wind, but that was it. I told Jeanette, I said, if we could stay here through Hugo, well, we're going to ride Florence out to see what it does.
Well, the Smith family is 71-year-old David and Jeanette, and they've been living out in this area for about 32 years or so. They've been married for 52 years. They say they've ridden out every storm that's come this way, and they'll continue to ride out whatever comes with Hurricane Florence. Again, though, the conditions here right now in McClellanville are pretty mild. It's a pretty windy, not too windy, a little above average in the normal day. We saw a little bit of drizzle, but that's since kind of worn off. We'll be out here all morning, and we'll bring you the latest conditions from McClellanville on air and online and on Facebook as well. Working for you in McClellanville, Megan Rivers, ABC News 4.
Thank you, Megan. Now to a view just a little north of us. New drone footage shows a calm scene in Garden City. But as you can see, no one's on the beach. Many homeowners say they didn't want to ride out the storm.
The rain and stuff, I mean, that'll wash away your foundation. You get so much rain, you know, the ground starts deteriorating, so your foundations could wash away. It's realistic, you know. You know, the winds, it depends. If you got some cover, you might be all right with the wind. But if you live in an open area, the winds will be a big factor. You know, trees falling down, but, you know, it's that rain kind of deteriorates your foundation, wash your house away.
All right, Atlanta, of course, still rolling out the welcome mat for more Hurricane Florence evacuees as they head west. A college student from Myrtle Beach said she didn't hesitate to get out when the evacuation orders came down, and a couple on vacation, well, they followed suit.
My roommate was like, "What are you going to do?" And I was like, leave? I don't know. Go the opposite direction of where it's coming.
Gave notice that everybody had to evacuate by noon yesterday.
So there went your vacation?
Yes.
Other evacuees we caught up with say they're just glad to be out of Florence's path.
Now to a touching story out of North Charleston. Bonefish Grill opened up its doors to feed over 100 first responders Thursday. Managers say they wanted to thank them for keeping our community safe.
We are taking you into the storm. A live look from our storm chaser partners right there up in Wilmington. Much more on Florence's impact here at home. That's coming up.
And remember to tune in to one of our 5 radio partners where you'll hear updates on Florence throughout the day. Stay with us.
All right, so just a quick summary of what we're going to be seeing from Florence as far as impacts in our area. Definitely going to be seeing tropical storm force winds, or we're pretty confident in with that. Certainly gusts, though farther north you could see slightly higher gusts. Heavier rain will be a factor as well. As to how long it lasts, that's still a bit up in the air. Storm surge, while we still have a chance, that's pretty low. So that's why we only kept one bar there. And of course, coastal impacts, example, rip currents, as well as some beach erosion. That is definitely going to be a factor, particularly once again the farther north you go. So flooding, that's one of the concerns as well. Still some of that dependent on those tracks. And if we take a look at our extended forecast, this weekend's going to be a stormy weekend, but then hopefully things start to improve, and by next week we'll get back to normal, which will be hot, humid, chance of showers. Don't think we can complain too much about that, guys.
Great. Thanks, Chris. And we want you to chime in. Feel free to send us videos and even pictures throughout the duration of Florence. You can upload them at abcnews4.com/chime in. But remember, safety first. Do not put yourself in harm's way.
Our team of meteorologists tracking the storm around the clock. Be sure to download the ABC News 4 and First Warning Weather app for the latest developments on Florence, and much more live coverage coming up in our next half hour.
Be prepared. Right.
Oh yeah. Okay. So we'll mic check. Hi, Kendrick. I'm here with Sabrina. Sabrina.
Yes.
So I got it right.
Okay.
Sabrina is not evacuee. We are at. I just sent you an email. I'm not sure if you got it. But we're at the Red Bank Road gas station, just up the road, and we're just talking to Sabrina. She lives in this area. Are you in Goose Creek?
And 10. Mic check 1 2. Check 1 2.
Well,
I'd say let's go up by that sign, the road closed sign.
You're watching Good Morning Charleston on ABC News 4 with John Bruce, Tessa Spencer-Adams, Emily Gracie, and Megan Rivers. This is Good Morning Charleston.
We are watching and we are waiting. All eyes on Florence this morning. Category 1 storm slowly creeping up on the Carolinas.
Thousands are without power up in North Carolina right now. Hundreds stranded, and South Carolina could be hit with similar conditions later on tonight.
And our first warning weather team is here. They're getting us ready for the storm. Meteorologist Emily Gracie standing by with an update on Florence. And this is a slow mover, and it's causing some damage in North Carolina.
Yeah, devastating damage. In fact, making landfall right now. Hurricane Florence, a Category 1 hurricane near Wilmington. I want to show you exactly where that eye is because they're actually getting some quieter conditions on shore now in some spots where that eye is moving on shore. Take a look at that. Moving very slowly at this point, only 6 miles per hour, that forward motion to the west northwest, and I'm starting to see a little bit of a turn here in the last few frames, a little bit more westerly, so headed towards places like Rocky Point and Wilmington. They are up next there with the storm conditions, but the worst of it now has moved onshore. Surf City down to Kirkland, Myrtle Grove, Wilmington, Rocky Point. These are all spots that are getting the impacts from that eye wall. We've seen winds gusting over 100 miles per hour and reported sustained winds of about 80 miles per hour within that eye wall. The official report from the Hurricane Center still sitting with winds at 90 miles per hour. Those are sustained winds, not wind gusts. Take a look at that. That extends out from the center about 80 miles, those hurricane force winds. And notice where a lot of that energy is, where all that red is, it's to the north and to the east. So if you see on the south side here, heading a little bit farther south towards Myrtle Beach, they're not experiencing those wind gusts, nowhere near it, because that does extend a little bit farther to the north. So the impact certainly being felt all the way up through North Carolina, almost to Virginia right now. And looking at our map that includes Charleston, we're getting some clouds and some breezy conditions here, but we really have not felt those impacts yet of Hurricane Florence, and we may not get those hurricane impacts. Now, tropical storm warnings are still in effect for Charleston, and so we may experience those tropical storm conditions. Places like Georgetown down to McClellanville picking up those outer bands now. And this is going to be ongoing through the day today, but not consistent. We'll get rounds of rain possible in those northern counties, places like Myrtle Beach down to Georgetown, but those outer bands may not reach Charleston for a while. This is a real slow mover. We're talking about 6 miles per hour, moving to the west northwest still, so not directly towards Charleston by any means. It's going to take a while for those impacts to start to be felt, but unfortunately it could also mean that they stick around for a while. Here's the latest 90-mile-per-hour winds within that center. Moving to the west now, that's shifted a little bit. It's no longer in that northwesterly motion. It's moving due west at 6 miles per hour. It is 10 miles east of Wilmington, North Carolina right now. So we're getting updates on the hour as far as that location. As far as that long-term track, what happens after it moves on shore? Well, it's going to move west for a while, and then it's going to move southwest into South Carolina. This is when our concern comes in. Could still be a Category 1 hurricane at that time. Once the winds get down below 74 miles per hour, it will be a tropical storm. However, the slow movement of this system, this is tomorrow afternoon at 2 p.m. It is still just starting to move through South Carolina at the time. So the slow movement does mean a lot of rainfall. Now, for who? That's the big question. If it takes this track that the Hurricane Center is showing, the majority of the rainfall will be along that track and north of it. That doesn't mean we're out of the woods. We are going to get rain. It just may not be quite as heavy. Flooding, still a big concern here in Charleston, because flooding is a concern in Charleston all the time. So it doesn't take much rain and we could get a few inches. Notice the long-term track on that brings it back up through the upstate, western North Carolina, potentially even into portions of Kentucky or Ohio by early next week. So this is something we'll be dealing with for a while along the East Coast. And of course, flooding still our main concern, but I'll go over those wind impacts coming up in a few minutes.
Well, we've got reporters scattered across the Lowcountry this morning, bringing you the latest on Florence. Our Ann Emerson's tracking shelters in Berkeley County. Scott Eisberg and Darren Stolzfus tag teaming coverage up in Georgetown.
We're going to start with our own Brody Hart. He's live downtown Charleston. Brody, what are you seeing there?
Hey, John, good morning. So we're at the market right now. What we're seeing is a market that's not underwater. We hope that continues to be the case throughout this storm, because this area is so prone to flooding so easily, especially this intersection right here. So it's the intersection, of course, of East Bay Street and Market Street. So easily floods, even without a hurricane. We know that to be the case. Also, the trees behind me, not really showing a whole lot of wind right now, but we know that's going to kind of be our visual aid throughout the morning if we see the wind pick up here in downtown Charleston. But we're not really seeing that wind quite like they are to the north of us right now. But here's video from previous times the market has flooded. Here's the thing. It so often does not take much rain to flood this area. Emily Gracie was just talking about that. Now, with the rain potential we're talking about, though, could have some issues here downtown because of that going into later today, into tomorrow as well, especially if it's paired with a high tide. We've been mentioning those high tide times, 12:30 today, 12:30 p.m., May not have much rain at that time, but then midnight tonight and noon tomorrow. Those are the things that we're a little bit worried about with that high tide. So that's what we're going to be thinking about as this storm continues to jog in our direction. Hopefully, though, the market as it looks right now, it's deserted. Of course, it's early in the morning, but likely will stay deserted throughout the weekend because there is some serious potential for flooding in this area. But nothing crazy going on downtown at this point, but we'll update you on that throughout the morning. Tessa and John, I'll get it back to you.
All right, Brody, thank you. Now to a live look at the Ravenel. You won't see many cars riding over it today. It was pretty quiet earlier this morning. A lot of viewers asked us if officials would close area bridges. Officials say they don't plan on it, but they are urging drivers to exercise caution. Wind speeds could make driving across them dangerous.
Cots are now being delivered to shelters across the Lowcountry. Citadel cadets set up cots and blankets at Cane Bay High School in Berkeley County. Officials tell us 130 people are staying at that shelter, along with 53 pets. We're going to bring in our own Ann Emerson. She's been tracking conditions in Berkeley County for us. Ann, good morning.
Good morning, John. So we're at a gas station on Red Bank Road in Goose Creek, and we wanted to see who was out. And we've actually seen quite a few cars gassing up, people coming in, picking up a few things, sort of getting probably those last minute things together if they're going back inside. And we had a chance to speak with Sabrina. Sabrina's here with me right now. What are you up to today?
I'm going to visit my family for a little while, just hang out. Enjoy everybody.
So how's your stress level with this storm at this point?
It's fine. It's like a 1 because I knew the hurricane was going to do a 360 and not hit us, how the news was saying. It always does this. So I'm good.
And it's a relief not to have that extra concern on you right now. You said that you went through Hugo, so you've seen some bad storms.
Yes, definitely. Hugo was bad. I think electricity was out for like 2-3 weeks. So, yep.
And so we're probably going to start feeling impact soon. And you're going to be inside. You're going to be with family today.
Yes, that's correct.
So I think that's the feeling out here that we've been seeing people. The concern levels probably have lifted a little bit. At the same time, we're staying pretty cautious. We've also seen a great deal of police around. Have you seen a lot of police patrolling the streets?
Yes, they're everywhere.
I think probably just for the safety for the
right, because some people are probably still freaking out and paranoid and scared about it. So, yep, for safety.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much for talking to us, and please stay safe during this storm. We're going to be with you all day as well. You know, just checking on the conditions in this area. Right now, we just felt a few gusts of wind that came up earlier, but it's actually calmed down again. It still feels good out here, and we are certainly keeping an eye on the weather in this area, and we'll be reporting for you all day long. So back to you in the studio, reporting from Goose Creek, I'm Ann Emerson.
Thanks, Ann. Take a look at this. Meanwhile, rushing waters took over Topsail Beach in North Carolina Thursday. Yeah, the video was posted overnight. You can see people trying to avoid the rising stream. Some didn't have much luck.
And a sight that you see all the time during hurricane coverage. Check out storm chaser Bart Comstock right there. Planted his feet on Topsail Island in North Carolina on Thursday. You can see he's trying hard to stay upright in the wind there.
We've had our eyes on Georgetown for the past couple of days. The town is bracing for wind, rain, and major flooding. Scott Iceberg keeping track of conditions there for us this morning. Good morning, Scott.
Good morning to you, Tessa and John. How are you? Good to talk to you. Don't get to talk to you very often, so why not do it before a hurricane? We are here in Georgetown County. We're actually in Pawleys Island, or right over the bridge from Pawleys Island, because you can't go to Pawleys Island right now. If you look at the sign and the National Guard standing right behind the sign, it is closed. The causeway is closed. They certainly expect flooding there on Pawleys Island. So we were in Georgetown, downtown Front Street, down on the harbor earlier today. A little bit of wind, a little bit of rain. I know Emily said just a couple minutes ago that the outer bands could be starting to hit Georgetown County. I can tell you that they haven't hit us yet, and we are kind of on the South Strand, just outside of Pawleys Island, about 11 miles north of actual downtown Georgetown. We are here right now because this is pretty much the only movement we've seen all morning. We didn't see one car on the road the entire time we were out there. A couple of police officers just making sure all is safe. Nobody is looting. Nobody is doing anything. Didn't see anything of excitement as far as Front Street downtown. Nobody down there this morning. We did talk to a boat captain last night who was going to hunker down in his cabin and wait out the storm, watch a couple of his buddies' boats. He was doing that, so the boats were all there. A couple of the captains had gotten out of town. It seems like quite a few people have evacuated from here in Georgetown, but several hotels are open. As far as amenities, there are nothing. There is nothing. No gas stations open, no restaurants, no grocery stores, so there's really no reason to stay if you could get out of here. There's not much you can get outside of your house. As for Pawleys Island, you can't get out there. Just residents can get out there, and they've been asked to evacuate. You can see those National Guardsmen right behind that fence. We will continue to monitor it here in Georgetown County all day. Hopefully it stays like this. It's actually kind of a pleasant morning out right now. A little bit of wind, no rain right now at all. It's kind of a cool, nice morning as the sun will begin to rise in about an hour. Really not even any significant wind to show you yet. So we'll continue to stick around, talk to some folks, and get to talk to you guys. We don't get to talk to you very often, John and Tessa, so this is nice. This is good communication and outside the office.
People here in South Carolina.
All right, thank you so much, Scotty. We are keeping a close eye on Georgetown County. Of course, right now, look at the radar. We are seeing some showers moving through that area. The wind's starting to pick up as well. We will keep a close eye on Georgetown County, Horry County, starting to see some rain. I'll let you know when it could start to move into Charleston County. That's coming up.
I got you. Mic check 1 2 3. Mic check 1 2 3.
Well, as we are watching Wilmington right now, the eye moving onshore of Florence. Take a look at this. We are seeing those conditions going downhill quite rapidly in Wilmington, where that eye of Florence moving onshore. No official landfall yet as of 6 a.m. from the Hurricane Center. However, they are saying it's onshore, but that center of the eye has not moved over land yet, and that's when it will make landfall. Wilmington right now going through the worst of it. That eye wall pounding Wilmington right along 40 from Wilmington up to Rocky Point. I want to show you a live look outside right now of Wilmington of what it looks like in that area, those winds whipping around. We've seen reports of wind gusts in that area of over 100 miles per hour with sustained winds at about 80 miles per hour. Those trees whipping around and, of course, pouring rain. The rain has been the biggest concern here with this as we've been watching it slowly move onshore. So in addition to the rain, the surge has been a huge issue for areas north of there where that onshore push of water is causing storm surge to be devastating. So water is going to be the biggest concern and always is the biggest concern with any landfalling hurricane. The winds certainly going to be an issue as well. North Topsail Beach getting some very strong wind gusts right now. Now this is moving onshore, but the impacts extend well out from the center. Those hurricane force winds extend 80 miles out from the center of circulation. Now that is to the north. Notice how there isn't quite that impact to the south, and the reason for that, the counterclockwise motion of a hurricane. So notice that all of that energy is coming from the water, and it has to go over land before it comes back to this area, the south side of the storm. So it gets torn apart. The friction of the land really helps pull it apart. So the worst of those impacts are going to be in this area right here, that right side of the storm as it is making landfall. Back here in Charleston, though, we are going to feel impacts. In fact, we're already feeling those breezy conditions, and in some counties we're seeing some rain. So Georgetown County picking up some rain this morning, starting to move into northern portions of Charleston County as well. So Ondal, you'll start to see some showers here shortly if you aren't already. Cordsville as well, and then areas in Georgetown County are getting those rounds of rain. Nothing too heavy at this time. We'll say some showers and wind. Myrtle Beach picking up some rain as well. But the heaviest still remains to be in North Carolina at this time. As far as the winds are concerned, we're already getting some breezy conditions. I wouldn't say windy at this time, but sustained winds at 15 miles per hour. That's a breezy day here in Charleston. By the time we are done with this, though, we could be looking at tropical storm force winds. Now, I want to show you the European computer model because just a couple of days ago, we were all very alarmed with the European computer model because it did show a landfalling hurricane here in Charleston. But I want to show you this morning the latest on the European because it's important not to go with one computer model run and say that that's what's going to happen because it's ever changing. And the European is starting to line up a little bit more with those other computer models, not quite to the extent. It still has that track a little bit farther to the south. However, it's not quite that off the coast hurricane that they had it a couple of days ago. So this would still mean devastating rain impacts for a huge portion of the state, and including Charleston. We would have some flooding with that particular track. The GFS model does have it a little bit farther to the north, which would be better news for us. So that small change in track is going to make a big difference because that gradient of rain is going to be pretty big a difference depending on where you are. So this is going into tomorrow evening, very slow moving system and eventually moving up towards the mountains, which could certainly cause some devastating impacts as far as mudslides. So our rainfall totals that we are expecting, and this is one particular computer model, but a good example of just how different it can be depending on where you live, showing some spots less than an inch, places like Walterboro, less than an inch of rain by Monday morning. And then other areas in Georgetown County, almost 9 inches. And of course, the higher you go here on our map, the higher those totals are going to be, but show anywhere from about 1 to 8 inches across our area. So a huge spread there. And the tides are going to play a huge role, especially in those areas near the coastline and downtown. So we do have a high tide today at about 12:30, and then overnight tonight we have that 12:30 high tide, and then by Saturday 1:20 in the afternoon and Sunday early in the morning. So that's kind of the hot time where we'll be looking at the potential of heavy rain and watching those high tides closely. So flooding still a pretty big concern. Rain, huge spread depending on where you live. And those tropical storm force winds are still going to be possible, and that's in excess of 39 miles per hour. Could gust much higher than that. Rough surf and beach erosion already occurring. So we'll continue to track it as it moves onshore here in the next couple of hours and as those impacts start to be felt here in the low country. Guys?
All right, Ed, thank you. The sun, of course, about to come up. We might not see too much of it today.
I know clouds from Florence will cover the low country, and beaches could be feeling the brunt of the impact.
Erica Lunsford live on Sullivan's Island with more on that angle. Erica, good morning out on the coast. What are you seeing?
Good morning, John and Tessa. Normally right now, I mean, it's still pretty quiet out here. We were out here yesterday talking to a few locals who are just taking in their time at the beach. They're not worried. They plan to stay out here and, you know, just take on what Florence has to give to Sullivan's Island. Only thing that's a little different now, I guess, is the winds have picked up just a little bit. But pretty much other than that, it's pretty quiet and easygoing. We will be out here all day long to see if conditions continue to get better or they stay the same, or, you know, we'll be here to keep you guys updated. All right, guys, back to you.
All right, Erica, going to get a whole lot worse out there at the coast, but a whole lot more fun for reporters out there as well, too. All right, now to some new video out of Steeds Ferry, North Carolina. Take a look at this.
Wow.
A gas station awning toppled overnight by strong winds. Nobody hurt there. That gas station, of course, suffered minor damage. You can see it right there. More live coverage as Florence roars ashore in North Carolina. That's coming up.
Let's take a look at that 7-day forecast. We are in for some changes over the next few days. So today, expect the winds to pick up and a chance of rain by later in the day. 86 for the high. We could experience some tropical storm force wind gusts today, but really getting more so windy by tomorrow. So tomorrow and Sunday are going to be the crucial days, especially tomorrow. Wind and rain tomorrow. And by Sunday, things should start to settle down as far as the wind. The rain could hold on for a little while, but either way, by Monday, I think we are clearing out a little bit more and back to summer-like weather as we know it by early next week.
Good morning. The wind just now starting to pick up more. And Wilmington with the Cape Fear River rising, and that really is
All right, here's a live look right now at satellite radar as the eye wall is just starting to make its way towards land onto the beaches just outside of Wilmington. They're getting the brunt of it right now. So because of that, we're going to go ahead and toss it over to someone who is out there right now in Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina. Oh, okay. Just kidding. We're going to do that later. So this is what we're seeing right now in Wilmington. Heaviest rain. There's the eye wall or the eye right there. And again, it is just barely starting to make its way over. So lots of stuff going on. Now, we do have tropical storm warnings here in our neck of the woods, but obviously we're not going to be seeing anything like that. So for us, we're just going to be talking about winds, 30s, 40 miles an hour, heavy rain at times, but again, not what they're seeing there. Some of these other warnings, we've got hurricane warnings, as well as a lot of folks under flash flood watches, and even some of those rivers already in those darker green spots. flood warnings, and then of course the bright green are those flash flood warnings in effect right now. So those hurricane warnings, by the way, right at the county line. So McClellanville, where we've got a couple of our reporters just on the edge. Georgetown does have that hurricane warning, but the brunt of it, again, will be around the Wilmington area as we're seeing that right now. Charleston still outside those outer bands, so we're not really seeing a whole lot of that rain, though McClellanville is just starting to get it. So is Onondaga. Even then, most of this is kind of light, and with the breezes, it's not going to feel too bad just yet. Heading up towards Myrtle Beach, they're going to start to be seeing some of those showers. So it's picking up, but it's going to take a little bit before the storm gets here, because we are still several hours away from really starting to see a whole lot at all here in Charleston. Winds 15 miles an hour in Charleston. They're picking up in Georgetown a bit, but you can see how the gradient gets a lot tighter as you head north. Of course, that is where the storm is. John and Tessa, we're going to toss it back over to you guys, but we'll be back with full weather in just a bit.
We appreciate that. Of course, monitoring the storm. Megan Rivers right now reporting some rain in McClellanville. Hearing a lot of people on social media, on Twitter, even national news anchors, that they have lost power as those 90 to 100 mile per hour winds really just lashing the coast of North Carolina right now. I believe that we have a reporter standing by, meteorologist Veronica Johnson. Yeah. She's live at Wrightsville, I believe, in North Carolina, tracking Florence's impacts. We're going to check in with her just as soon as we can. Obviously, with technical difficulties, people are losing the ability to hear and communicate to one another, because really, it's just rocking and rolling out there right now.
Well, I think she is set now. Veronica, good morning. How are things where you are this morning?
The winds continue to pick up here, guys. So here we're in Lumberton, some 80 to 100 miles just west of Wrightsville Beach, and that's close to kind of the center of the storm system that is just going to hover there for a while today. Again, it's the slow movement, the massive size of this storm that's going to wind up being the big issue with storm surge and flooding in this area. On the northeast quadrant already, that dirty part of the storm of the hurricane, it's a massive size. They've had some real issues around New Bern, North Carolina with the Neuse River. It's the Atlantic pushing with the inland storm surge, pushing on a lot of the rivers and tributaries like the Neuse River. We're going to see similar conditions with the Tar River, with the Cape Fear River right around Wilmington, and even here in Lumberton, North Carolina with the Lumber River. We had problems during 2016 with Matthew, with water inundating the area, covering roads, including the major thoroughfare of I-95, where traffic had to be reworked and rerouted for weeks up around Raleigh, North Carolina. So we're likely to see the storm surge even here, with water levels cresting on some of the major rivers at about 5 to 10 foot above flood stage, along with the 20 inches of rain that we'll probably get through the weekend. Now, you can see there in some of the lights above here, some of the outermost bands of rain continue to come through. Take a look. You can see the trees, the winds really picking up, 40 mile per hour sustained winds, getting a little higher through the morning hours, and I really expect the worst of the wind at least to come through here in Lumberton around midday, probably about 1 to 5 p.m., where we could have some hurricane force gusts. But again, while the winds are going to continue to pick up, with Florence coming ashore, its massive size, I think it's all about the storm surge and the flooding for this area. A real life-threatening situation with a flood disaster likely by the time we get to the end of the weekend. I really think that there's going to be a lot of portions of towns underwater by the time we get to late Saturday and Sunday, guys. Back to you.
All right, hold on to your hats. Literally, Veronica Johnson, thank you so much. Georgetown, of course, going to feel the brunt of those winds and rains over the next day or so. Darren Stoltz was joining us right now, giving us a closer look at conditions there. Darren?
Yeah, good morning, John. It is finally starting to see some light up in this sky. Maybe we'll see the sun eventually. But so far in Georgetown, we have felt a few wind gusts. We've seen some brief rain, but nothing too heavy, nothing tremendous. People here, they were prepared. You know, we're taking a look at the Circle K. They were boarded up. Everybody is seeming to stay in their home. We haven't seen much traffic out on the roads other than a few police officers out cruising around, making sure no bad things going on, looting or what have you. Behind me, you can kind of see the traffic lights at this intersection. They're dipping and swaying a bit, but again, the wind gusts not coming through too strong just of yet. We haven't seen many people out on the roads. People are staying inside. 30 in the wake. I don't know this time of day normally. But over at the Waffle House, they are open. They are serving. And that's just about the only thing we've seen that has been open so far. But if you keep track of things, that's a good thing for Georgetown. And that's a good thing about the same. But so far, so good here in Georgetown. It's kind of a nice morning. It's below 80 degrees. It's a little bit gusty. You get a wind going every once in a while, but no rain yet. No problems of yet here in Georgetown. So for now, that'll do it for us. We'll talk a little later. But for now, live in Georgetown, Aaron Stoltzfus will send it back to you.
All right, there are a few curfews in place. Folly Beach Mayor Tim Goodwin set a curfew from 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. People entering the island will need to show 2 forms of identification. Horry County also has a curfew in place from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. No word on when the curfews will be lifted.
Berkeley County has additional shelters available. If you feel like you need to go to one, Macedonia Middle School and Cross High School are now open to evacuees. Other locations include Berkeley Middle School, Cane Bay High School, that's pet friendly, Goose Creek High School, as well as St. Stephen Elementary. Our own Ann Emerson has been live in Berkeley County for us throughout the morning. And good morning to you.
Good morning to you. Yes, we're here in Goose Creek and just been watching the winds kind of whip through this area a little bit. We're at a gas station at Red Bank. We've been seeing some activity. From what we understand, this is really one of the very few gas stations that are open in this area right now as people are preparing for the storm. But it is open, so we've seen a few people coming through, and we actually have had an opportunity to, Captain Sean Laffey is with us with the Goose Creek Police Department. He's joining us to just tell us how things are going here in Goose Creek. Can you give us an update on this area right now?
Yes, ma'am. Right now, everything seems to be relatively calm. There's not a lot of traffic. I think most people have been able to go where they wanted to go by now and prepare to the point of being as prepared as they can be for what's going to come. So everything right now at this time is running smoothly.
Do you have extra staff on right now?
Yes, the agency, along with a lot of others in the area, have committed to a emergency recall status, which brings all of your personnel in and splits them in half, and we provide around-the-clock coverage with all of our staff and personnel to make sure that we're creating somewhat of an omnipresence for all of our citizens.
As far as we were just talking a little bit earlier about how the people had a lot more time to prepare. So basically, people have been out a little bit later, maybe working and getting a few more things done. Like I think you said something about the sandbags. Were people still putting sandbags together? Yes.
As of yesterday, people were still able to prepare and get supplies. A couple local grocery stores were still open, and were able to get the things that they needed to do. I think the speed of the storm allowed for some additional time for people to get ready for it.
Yeah, and also we were talking about flooding earlier. That's also going to be a big concern here, isn't it?
Yes, historically we've had problems, of course, living in low country, we're very susceptible to it. But anytime we have large bands of rain that come and stay for quite some time, there are certain areas that are prone to it, and we're used to those areas, and we're prepared to try to provide services to them when they need it.
So we're going to be watching those areas in particular, aren't we, as this storm passes through? But we're still looking at maybe, I don't know, we're still hours away at least.
Yes, once again, the speed of the storm, we're going to experience another day on our emergency recall similar to yesterday. And as all of you probably well know, that we're not going to start to see the effects of this at its, at its greatest, fullest potential for here in our area till maybe even tomorrow.
And as far as any tips for viewers last minute, if they do have an emergency or if there's a problem, when should they call you?
Anytime that there's an emergency, they need us. 911 is always the thing to do, and we'll have the quickest response we can, and we'll get to you as soon as we can. So we're here for you.
Thank you, Captain Laffey. That's Captain Laffey with the Goose Creek Police Department, just giving us some information about this area and how things are going. It sounds like folks have had a little bit extra time to prepare, which is great news. So the anxiety level goes down, of course, when that happens, but it's still, we have a storm coming. And people do need to prepare, and they need to understand that there is flooding in this area historically, as Captain Laffey was telling us. So we're going to be watching this area very carefully over the next days, and we will let you know as things progress. Back to you in the studio. Ann Emerson in Goose Creek.
All right, Ann, thank you. Still time to fuel up. Of course, police there on the patrol. You know, downtown Charleston normally pretty busy on a Friday, even a Thursday night, but that's not the case this week. Many businesses and homes have already boarded up ahead of Florence. Brody Hart joining us live once again from the market downtown. And Brody, you know, we don't even need a hurricane in that area to prompt some of that flooding.
Yeah, John, that's right. A typical summer storm is enough just to flood this area. So this is the intersection of East Bay Street and Market Street downtown. And like we've been saying, this is an area so prone to flooding. Now, another thing that we're focusing on today, though, it's the winds this storm could bring. We've been seeing a lot of wind north of us, not quite here downtown. We've been showing those trees blowing around. We don't quite see that, though. It is picking up a little bit right now. It may take a little time before we feel that. Another thing I want to show you, though, in addition to some of the wind and some of the precautions that businesses are taking here. Right behind me, there's a restaurant. You can see it's got sandbags there boarded up in front of the door. That's kind of been the case all around downtown. We've seen a lot of homes, a lot of businesses, a lot of restaurants boarded up, plywood and sandbags, just in case we do get some of that storm surge and that flooding downtown, especially right here in this area. We've even got video, though. It's scenes like this from past floods right here at the market downtown that people are trying to avoid. And really, here's what the worst case scenario for this is, guys. It's to have this storm hitting us hard during a high tide. May not be as much of an issue today, high tide. It's around noon today. Not likely we're going to get a lot of rain in downtown Charleston around that time, but later tonight at midnight, later tomorrow around noon again. Those are times when we're going to have high tides once again. Could be a different story. Also, don't forget the size of this storm. It's the size of North Carolina, South Carolina, the state of Virginia, all combined. A huge storm just now making its way onto land north of us up in Wilmington. We saw Darren Stoltzfus standing in the rain up in Georgetown north of us, so that may be heading down towards us in downtown Charleston later this morning, later today. But right now, nothing too crazy downtown, no rain at all. A little bit of wind that we're seeing pick up just a little right now, but we'll update you on that throughout the morning as that changes. But we're live downtown right now, guys. I'll send it back to you in the studio.
All right, taking a live look right now at Florence. Again, we are starting to see that eye wall move inland going through Wilmington as we speak. So strongest conditions pushing through right now. We'll have the latest updates and show you some of the updated models coming up in just a bit.
Stopped. And your name is?
Megan Rivers. Okay. Hey, can you hear me, Kendrick?
Hey, good morning, everyone. And taking a look right now at the latest with Florence, it is just making its way towards Wilmington. In fact, the center of the eye, 10 miles east of Wilmington, but it's getting pretty close. And that was as of the 6 a.m. update. So pretty sure that eye is moving there as we speak, and that's what radar indicates. Though we are seeing a few of those outer clouds moving over Charleston. No rain to speak of just yet here at home. So right about this time was when they forecast it, so they actually did a pretty good job with this storm. So here we go with our tropical tracker, staying as a Category 1, riding near the coastline of North Carolina. That is good news because there was some concern that it would actually come out to the sea again, which would prevent it from weakening quite as fast. But this way it'll lose strength fairly quickly, becoming a tropical storm as it makes its way in through the center part of the state. Here's 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. So that is a long time between now and then. As far as that's a lot of rain for not a huge area, unfortunately. And then it starts to pick up steam as it approaches the Appalachians, moving up north and then finally eventually into New England. So that's the current forecast of the storm. There is still some variabilities to exactly where, but here in Charleston, it means for the most part, it's going to stay to our north. Currently, those winds are picking up a little bit in Georgetown at 20 miles an hour. Everyone else in the upper single digits, low double digits. And here's the European model. Again, it shows it staying closer to the coast, wandering down just a little bit further south than some of the other ones, but nonetheless still north of Charleston. If that were to be the case, we would get more rain from the Euro than we would from the GFS, which I'll show you right now. This one does keep it farther north than even the European does. In this case, places like Charlotte and Fayetteville, North Carolina would be getting considerably more rain than us. Actually, if this were to be the case, we really wouldn't get a ton at all. So that's the GFS. There's still some variability, but overall our rain totals do look, they'll be quite a spread between who gets a lot and who doesn't. You see Georgetown, 8.3 inches. But look at that, all the way down to Walterboro, barely a ½ inch. Charleston, 2. Moncks Corner, 3. So we're kind of in that edge of who gets a lot and who doesn't. You go south of us, not a lot. North, a lot more. So Charleston, honestly, we're saying 2 to 6 inches, and that's just because where that boundary layer is going to be a big factor. A couple things though to be aware of: high tides. That is where there's obviously the biggest chance at some localized flooding if the rain really starts to pour at those times, as Brody talked about in downtown. 1:20 Saturday, 1:25 in the morning. So there you go. And luckily for us, we're not expecting any of those hurricane force winds. Most of those will stay away from us. Here's your extended forecast. Winds and rain picking up Saturday, Sunday, but they'll start to taper off after that.
Marcus, thank you. We're going to send things out now to Megan Rivers live, who's tracking conditions up in McClellanville for us. Megan, tell us all about it, where you are right now.
Well, the rain has started, John, and it seems like it's not going away this time. It's still a little breezy, but not too much is going on. But believe it or not, I found some folks who are out taking their morning stroll. I'm joined now by Larry and Terry. They rhyme. Hey, so you guys take a morning stroll every day?
I do it Monday through Friday. Terry is a 7-day-a-week walker.
Okay, and you guys say that you don't evacuate during storms. You stay here all the time.
Well, it depends on the strength and the location. If it's south of you, get out of here. If it's north of you, you're on the backside, it's not as bad.
Okay. And
if it was a Category 3, we'd be out of here.
And you say that your house is more than 100 years old?
Correct. Built in 1903.
Okay. Well, you guys continue to enjoy the rest of your morning walk and stay safe through whatever conditions we get from Florence. That's the latest from here in McClellanville. I'll send things back to you guys in the studio.
All right, Megan, looks gorgeous where you are.
Yeah, and we are taking you into the storm. This is a live look from one of our Storm Chaser partners. Stick around for one last look at Florence's impact here at home.
Final check of the forecast right here on Good Morning Charleston. Chris Nessman standing by. And Chris, we now have that storm onshore up near Wilmington, North Carolina.
It is, and you can see those wind gusts already above hurricane force strength. 76 miles an hour. Hurricane starts at 75. So it is affecting Wilmington. Now you get farther away, Charleston barely seeing gusts of 24. So yeah, it's definitely going to affect them a lot more than us. So here's a timeline of that. So today, 86 degrees, getting windy, PM rain in the evening is possible. By the afternoon, I think those winds will be about 20, 25 miles an hour. So tonight, 74 degrees for a low. We will start to see some rain. It will be breezy and blustery. Those gusts upwards of 40 miles an hour. So depending on which direction your house faces, it could be blowing right on the window of your bedroom. My windows rattle if it comes from a certain direction. Hoping that's not the case. Tomorrow, 83 for a high. Heavy rain will be possible. The winds, while they'll still be present, they will start to taper off. So you have the wind first, and then the rain will be kind of the second act. And then finally, come Sunday, still be breezy and a chance of heavy rain. Emily and I's thinking is there's still a little question as to how quickly this storm is going to move out of our area.
And does that also depend on exactly where you are?
It definitely does. Yeah, so the extended forecast, we have Saturday, Sunday being windy, rainy days. Monday, that 50% chance really is depending on how quick it moves out. If it moves out fast, we'll see a lot more sunshine Monday, obviously, versus if it slows down.
I got to ask you, everybody's asking me, when are we going to be done with this thing?
Well, I mean, you just saw there on the 7th day. I think Monday. I think we can say goodbye on Monday. However, that's us. This thing could linger into the mountains into Monday or even Tuesday. So I think it'll have a different impact for different people. Obviously, the surge in North Carolina right now, that live look from Wilmington, the wind, a huge concern there right now as well. And then it's just going to be a rainfall event. Once this thing moves to South Carolina, it is going to be rain, 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 slow moving system. We were talking about how slow it's going 6 miles an hour.
That's slow.
So we're just waiting for that shift. Right now it's going due west. Once it starts moving southwest, that's when we got to keep an eye on it.
Okay, watching.
Closer eye.
Watching. Much more hurricane coverage coming up over on Fox 24.
Right now we're going to honor America with our daily pledge brought to you by Miss Pheasant's first grade class at Cainhoy Elementary. Stay safe, everybody. We will be on screen just as much as we need to be during this storm.
Have a blessed one.